Welcome to Evil Done Badly, the worst true crime podcast in history. We have some big news this week. We're proud to announce that we've recently hit the leaderboard on the Japanese true crime podcast charts. We came in at number 54 and would really like to express our gratitude to the fine people of Japan for having such great taste in terrible podcasts. As a token of our gratitude, this episode is dedicated to you guys and features a well-known nutcase from the land of the rising sun. This episode is a wacky one and features Issei Sagawa. He had some strange desires indeed. But before we get into it, get yourself some sake, hold on to your arse, and let's hear the theme song. This episode of Evil Done Badly is brought to you by Tide Pods. They're colorful and come in all sorts of delicious flavors. You can even use them to clean your clothes. And while you're sitting around naked, waiting for your laundry to be done, go ahead and join up to the Wide World of Paranormal Investigations group on Facebook. They've got a shitload of members and would love to have you on board as well. Sign up today. Now back to the show. Issei Sagawa was a fuck-ugly little shit born in Kobe, Japan in 1949. He wasn't just little when he was born, and he was tiny. He only growed up to be 4'9", and he was a sickly child with a limp, and he developed enteritis. So he probably had the shits most of the time as well. He didn't have a lot going for him, but he did have wealthy parents and a pet dog who liked him enough to have sex with him. Early on, he caught a glimpse of a male classmate's thigh. Okay, and what do you naturally think when you see a bare thigh? Well, Issei here decided that his classmate's thigh looked yummy. So he started developing weird yummy leg feelings as far back as grade 1. Now he's a loner, and as he grows up, he kind of buries himself in the world of literature. That is when he's not banging his dog. Now, I'm using the word literature here just to mean books that are so goddamn awesome they're considered art. And if you would like to bury yourself in the artful world of literature, you can do so by purchasing the Evil Done Badly Compendium Volume 1 over on Amazon and burying yourself in that. I'm using a very loose definition of art here, but I think it suits our book pretty good. Now, he goes on to get a master's degree in English literature, and I'm pretty sure that qualifies him for an illustrious career in, well, pretty much nothing. It means he's a reasonably smart dude who likes art, but that's not very useful for pretty much anything. Now, while he's attending university, he formulates a plot to help him satisfy his strange desires that we mentioned earlier. So he follows a tall German woman back to her apartment, and he waited until she was asleep. I don't actually know if the German woman was really actually tall, or only seemed tall to him because he was a tiny, ugly little man. Either way, she awoke to find that Sagawa had broken into her apartment and was standing over her as she slept. She had no trouble resisting his attack and pushed him down on the ground. And tiny little Issei here would run away, and she would call the police, and he would soon be captured. He has a very distinctive look that makes it hard for him to get away with things. He will be charged with attempted sexual assault, but his wealthy father would make the charges go away by settling monetarily with the victim. Now, that's not quite how it went down. He told the authorities he was there for a sexual assault purpose. He was actually there to slice off a part of her fleshy buttocks and abscond with it. He was there to slice off part of her butt cheek, bring it home, and cook it. When he tells the story of when he met her in the street, he says to himself, quote, "I wondered if I could eat her." So, that didn't quite go as planned. After this incident, he confessed to a psychiatrist that he was having really fucked up fantasies and was beginning to act upon them. The psychiatrist dubbed him dangerous. Yep, that sounds about right. Maybe this guy should get some help and stop being all psycho and stuff. But instead, his father just paid someone to sweep it all under the rug and had him shipped off to France. So he gets a new start in a new country and is no less depraved in France than he was when he was living in Japan. Further, he decided that if he was going to indulge his cannibalistic notions for real, he would need to be a bit better prepared next time. He was too small and dainty to be persuasive on his own. So he had to find a quicker, more effective way to make his victims stop resisting. It would take a few years to put this plan into action, but after a few false starts, it would eventually come to fruition. So he's now 27, and he's in France to pursue his PhD in literature. That's an even more impressive title for a subject that's still incredibly useless. Now, what he actually gets, instead of a PhD in literature, is a PhD in ligatures. No, I made that up. He's too weak and puny to kill anybody with his hands. He's not strangling anybody. He doesn't have enough strength to choke his own chicken, for fuck's sakes. So, the hell with that, he gets himself a rifle. He then starts bringing home prostitutes so that he can shoot them and eat them. But he gets cold feet over and over again and can't bring himself to shoot any of them. I guess he just partook in whatever services they were offering, paid them, and they went happily on their way, not knowing the extent of the lunacy they just escaped from. Now, a few years later, in June of 1981, he invited a Dutch woman named Renee Hartevelt over to his apartment. He had met her in Sorbonne University, and he fell in love with her smooth, white skin immediately. She was very smart, attractive, spoke 3 languages, and actually found Sagawa kind of endearingly pathetic, in an ugly, gimpy sort of way. She would even invite him over to her apartment for tea. Naturally, Sagawa, after being paid attention to, falls even more in love with her and asks her to come over to his apartment to read him some German literature. He tells her his dad is rich and she will be paid handsomely for her services. Now, he's really milking this rich dad thing. But she agrees and comes over and reads him some poems. All good. She goes home and he begins licking the place where she was sat, and he vows to consume her. She has no idea what this shy little man wants to do to her. As far as Renee is concerned, this crippled little gnome of a man is nice, smart and friendly, but completely repulsive sexually. Nevertheless, she feels safe around Sagawa and is fine spending time with him. Then, on June 11th, he invites her over one last time. He invites her over to recite some more German literature and sits her on the floor, Japanese style, to have a cup of tea. He spikes the tea with whiskey, sits back, and waits for the whiskey to make her a little more agreeable. little Issei then lays it all on the line and tells her he has feelings for her and wants to make sweet, awkward love to her. She shoots him down and tells him she just wants to be friends with him. You'd think he'd be happy that an attractive, tall Dutch woman was treating him like a human being, but nope. He gets excited, he wants more. I know that I love when people treat me like a human being. It doesn't happen that often, but it's nice when it does. Okay, Dick, get over yourself. No one thinks you're a functioning human being. You're not fooling anyone. They're just humoring you. Whatever. Anyways, I'm going to edit that out. Back to the story. So, he hands her a book to translate onto a running tape recorder, and she continues reciting stuff despite his awkward romantic advances. That's got to make it a bit uncomfortable. And I have no idea what kind of stuff she was reading for him. I guess it's whatever stuff that smart literature people find entertaining. With Renee sat on the floor and distracted by the book, Sagawa sneaks up behind her and shoots her in the back of the neck with the rifle. She slumps over to the ground, bleeding profusely, and was dead before she landed on the floor. Sagawa's plan was to kill her, eat her, and absorb her health and beauty for his own. He was hoping her attractive qualities would rub off on him if he ate her, because he was small, weak, and ugly. So after she goes quiet and is laying bleeding and dead on the floor, Sagawa does what every able-bodied killer does. He gets overcome with emotion and faints on the carpet. Sagawa eventually comes to and has his way with her before trying to tear her flesh off with his teeth. His teeth are too wimpy to pull any of her meat off, so he leaves her there and runs out and buys a butcher knife. He cuts off her nose, her breasts, her buttocks, and various other parts of her body and eats them. He cooks some of it, and he swallows the rest of it raw. He puts parts of her in the fridge and took pictures of her at various states of consumption. Over the next couple of days, Sagawa would cut off and try various parts of her body, finding that some tasted much better than others. And while he was doing this, he was partaking in the recordings of her reading the stuff in German. So, I mean, he was getting the full auditory and, food experience here. But he could not keep Renee's mutilated corpse around forever. After sleeping with it for 2 nights, decomposition was setting in, and it was time for him to dispose of the body. He took whatever parts he wanted and put them in the fridge, paying special attention to her lips. He then cut up what was left of her and stuffed the body into 2 suitcases. He called a cab and brought the 2 suitcases to a lake to dump them into. Now, as we've said multiple times before, he's a wussy little cunt and didn't have the easiest time lugging these suitcases down to the lakeside. So this puny man is dragging 2 suitcases to a lake in the dark and is having a difficult time and is probably grunting and making a noticeable racket while doing so. You can only be so sneaky under these circumstances. He's huffing and puffing away with these heavy suitcases, and, well, he gets noticed by a couple of onlookers. So he panics, he starts whistling to himself, he limps away and leaves the suitcases abandoned on the edge of the lake, hidden away in plain sight. This onlooking couple thinks it's all totally fucking weird and comes over to investigate. They find these suitcases suspiciously seem to have blood on them. They, in turn, call the police. The police discover Renee's remains and begin an investigation. Between the description from the onlookers and the tracing of the suitcases, Sagawa was probably not that hard to track down. Again, well, he's very distinctive. And it probably went something like this. This is the onlookers now. They're after calling the cops and they're screaming at him going, "Hey, officer! Just look for a little tiny Asian troll of a man with a bum leg. That's him." But they probably said it in French. In which case it would be... Hold on now, I'll get my friend Pierre in here to translate for you. Hey, Pierre! Yeah. Oui, Hey, Pierre, I'm gonna need you to read this little bit here. Hey, officier! Cherchez juste un petit troll asiatique, minuscule d'un homme avec un jambe enflée. C'est lui. Not bad. Well, thanks, Pierre. You can go back to your wine and cheese now. Oui. J'adore les fromages. Okay, yeah, okay, you can go away. And back to the show. So for the next few days, Sagawa would consume some more human flesh each day until the police showed up at his door. He let them in and, well, they found parts of Renee's body in his refrigerator. So he sees the writing on the wall and he just outright confesses to the murder. And goes out of his way to inform them that he's completely bonkers. Guys, I know there's a body in my fridge, but you're gonna have to look past that because I'm a fucking nut job. Okay, alright, we get it, but that's still very illegal. We're gonna have to ring in. Okay, so he's caught, he's guilty of heinous crimes, and is going to be executed. Or at least put away for all eternity. End of story. That's it. Period. Full stop. Done. Episode's over, you can all go home. Not quite. He has rich parents, remember? Rich parents who are somehow very supportive, no matter how much of a lunatic their son is. They get him a good lawyer, and a French judge declares that he should be locked away in an asylum indefinitely. It was unanimously stated that this guy was crazy and was more or less gonna stay nuts forever. So he lingers in a French psychiatric institution for about 2 years. And while he's there, someone comes to see him. This happens to be an author who's looking to cash in on this cannibal guy's crazy story. So he takes down Sagawa's description of the whole thing and writes a book about it. The book is a minor hit and draws a whole bunch of unwanted attention to the French penal system. And France gets annoyed with dealing with it. So while this is going on, Sagawa's dad does some sweet talking and gets his son deported back to Japan. France has no problem with this and they quickly agree because they're tired of dealing with him and how annoying he is. So Sagawa gets put in a mental hospital in Japan and somehow declared sane by the Japanese psychologists. His dad probably had something to do with that as well. You can see where this is going. This weasel is going to get out of jail because his daddy has a bunch of money. I don't know exactly how this all works, but this is how it turned out. Since France had washed their hands of him, they would not release his files to the Japanese authorities after he left the country. Technically, since Japan didn't have any files, because France had them locked away, no files pertaining to Sagawa's atrocities, they couldn't legally hold him prisoner any longer. Even despite knowing what went down with this fucking nutjob and poor Renee. There's fucking books written about it. It happened. It's not a fucking secret. It's out there. He's an ugly, murderous cannibal. Fry him. But he didn't get fried. He checked himself out of the mental hospital in 1986. So after serving just less than 5 years in various institutions, he walked out a free man. What a slimy little cunt. Now, most normal people were put off by his premature freedom. Some others, who were not as put off, invited him to be on their talk shows and be a motivational speaker. He spent the next 12 or so years being a pseudo-celebrity and reveling in the attention these horrific acts were generating. He appeared in movies, mostly of the adult variety. He wrote 4 books, and most tastelessly of all, wrote restaurant reviews and appeared on the cover of a Japanese gourmet magazine. Apparently, someone out there also published an anthology of cannibal fantasies. No, I can't see why that wouldn't sell surprisingly well. And Mr. Sagawa here served as editor on that. According to Sagawa himself, when he was asked about his celebrity status, he said, quote, "The public has made me the godfather of cannibalism, and I am happy about that," unquote. But this infamy could only carry him so far. After a while, it became hard for him to find speaking engagements or anything else in pseudo-show business. It was also difficult for him to find any kind of normal everyday job, because he was a known sicko. Eventually, he became unwell, had to live alone, was on welfare, and in public housing. All the while lamenting how terrible it was to be unemployed because people wouldn't hire a cannibalistic murderer. Poor little guy. Fuck him. Now, when life comes full circle, he had it all figured out. He also wanted to be eaten himself by a young white woman when he dies. He figured that will be the only way he can have his soul saved. Well, that wasn't going to happen. He was thrown into a pit of wild wombats, and they tore him limb from tiny limb, and his soul was not saved. Or at least he should have been. He spent his last 10 years being doted on by caregivers and his younger brother because his nervous system just crapped out on him. He was completely useless at this point, and he's still a piece of shit. He should have fried when they got the chance. Either way, he died from pneumonia in 2022 in Tokyo. And that's the end of Issei Sagawa, or the Kobe Cannibal. And as an added bonus, here's a pointless fact. His book about the murder sold over 200,000 copies. But you shouldn't buy it. He's a cunt. And there you have it. Another crappy episode of the worst true crime podcast ever. Evil Done Badly is over and done with. If you would like to reach out and suggest future episode topics, we can be reached on Twitter or Instagram at Evil Done Badly, or by email at evildonebadly@gmail.com. So thanks to all 3 of you listeners for making it this far, and I hope you'll continue to tune in to this terrible podcast every week. So thanks again for being here. My name is Dick, and I will see you next time. Hold on 1 second, I almost forgot. Before we close off here, I'd just like to say thank you to the guy over at murderpedia.org for providing me with crime scene photos from this case. I won't be forgetting those anytime soon, and they will haunt me until I die. Again, murderpedia.org is a great site and very informative. Highly recommended. Thanks again. Bye-bye.